How's it going, everybody? So today I'm going to be talking about an album that actually came out in August. Um, the band reached out to me and asked me if I would do a uh, album thoughts video for this album because I didn't do one in August when I listened to it because yeah, it's difficult to do. I can't do an album thoughts for like every single album. It's just not feasible. But I'm just always humbled when a band cares to know my thoughts. So I said absolutely. I would love to put together my full thoughts um, on the album and release a video on it. So here I am doing just that. But with that being said, I'm going to treat this album thoughts video like any other. So, anywho, the name of this band is Flame Imperishable, and the name of the album is Glory and Ruin. And y'all know it by now. Before I get into that nitty gritty, let's check out the cover. So, boom, there it is. Take a look at that cover. I really like this cover. I think it looks really, really cool. It's almost like a surrealist kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm using that properly or not, but just it almost looks like watercolor or something, and the way everything is kind of uh, like you can almost see like the strokes in the paint. It's just a really nice artistic looking cover. It's really dark. I do like the colors, and you see this canoe type of thing, and there's like a skeleton in there and a dude. It's almost like ushering the dead, along like the river of Styx, or whatever it is, but just along the passage, from the living to the dead. And it just looks really, really cool. Evokes a lot of emotion, and I can see this as a painting up on the wall. Again, I just really like it, and I like seeing like the brush strokes basically, and again like the purples, the dark purples and blues, and in the colors, really neat. So yeah, I like the cover. I think it looks really cool. As far as conveying what you'll get on the album, I don't think, if you were to see this in a CD shop, you never heard of the band before, you see this cover, you see the band logo up there in the top left, and to me, I would see this and I'd be like, this is a black metal album, hands down. So, I think it may convey possibly the wrong sound, that you'll get if someone sees this. I really think just because the darkness of the cover, and especially with the band logo up there, I think most folks would be like, oh, this is a black metal album, So if someone's really into black metal, they might grab this, or if someone's not into black metal, they may skip this. And the album's not black metal, as simple as that. So it may give off the wrong impression if someone's not already familiar with the sound of the album. But so yeah, you know, but cover, just aesthetically, I love it. As far as it conveys the music, the sound that you get on the album, eh, I just don't think it does. But I think it gives the wrong impression. But anywho, that's the cover. Let's get into the album itself. There's 10 songs on this bad boy. It comes in about 56 minutes. So definitely, it's pushing an hour here. The songs are going to be somewhat on the longer side because, again, you got 10 songs, 56 minutes. So, some are around 4 minutes or so, but some are definitely longer. Like it starts out with a 9-minute song here. 5 minutes, pushing 6 minutes. You got a couple that are under 3 minutes. Then you got one that's almost 13 minutes. So there's a decent variety in the length of the songs here. The sound, it's a little tricky to describe the sound of the album. It's not black metal, but it definitely has some death metal influences as far as like extremes go. But I also wouldn't call this a death metal album. Uh, it's a very tricky. This album can't really be defined by one genre or even really a combination of genres. It's really say, and to try to describe the sound of the album, is first and foremost, I would say progressive. I would say that's the most prevailing um, genre or sound throughout the whole album. Progressive, heavy, heavy, heavy progressive elements here. And then on top of that, I would say it's, um, I guess, I don't know, it fluctuates. So it's like the progressive elements, that is pretty much from start to finish through the end. But then throughout, again, you get some death metal elements, with the heaviness of the guitar and things like that. But then you also get more uh, just like progressive rock. There's a lot of acoustic guitar work in here, so very interesting. There's no growls, there's female vocals, clean vocals. Um, there's a male vocals on track 12, I believe it is, or not 12. It's the like 12-minute long song, track 9, the Scarlet, Gale Part 2, the Descent. But other than that, it's female vocals all the way through. And progressive elements with heavy guitar sound, like a death metal guitar sound, a lot of the way through it. It's a heavy, heavy metal sound. But then also you get some acoustic guitar moments, and then you get moments that is more of just like a prog rock with the pop almost influenced in there, almost like a 70s transcendental kind of sound. So there's a lot going on here, but predominantly it's progressive, heavy metal sound. So the guitar is the most prominent aspect musically. Very, very heavy, deep, uh, rough sounding guitars, in your face kind of sound with the guitars. And guitar lovers will rejoice here, because folks who just love really intricate guitar work with solos and just all kinds of fanciness, you'll love it, because there's lots of solos, lots of intricate guitar work here. It's really all over the place, the guitar. So that is really the highlight. That is the most prominent player here in the album is the guitar work. That's truly what is up in the front, in the spotlight. So whether it's just really heavy riffs with a heavy metal sound, or whether it's just crazy solos, or whether it's just fast rhythmic guitar going, or again, then you get some really intricate acoustic guitar work in here as well. The guitar is just always shining, and just doing something different all throughout here. So a lot of fancy guitar work here. So guitar lovers, you'll love hearing all the different aspects of the guitar work here. It's intricate. Uh, it's constantly moving. There's a lot of movement throughout this whole album. Nothing is very um, uh, nothing just really kind of stays the same. It's moving a lot. So you just get a lot of sweeping guitar work, solos, but then rhythms, and then acoustic, and like moody kind of atmospheric guitar. It just, anything you can think of almost. Yeah, you get it. The drum work is really solid, keeping pace with all the movement. Again, very heavy progressive elements here, but not like keyboard. You take away the keyboard. I mean, you get some synth. The keyboard, I believe, like in track 9 in particular, but for the most part, it's not. There's like no keyboard. This is like progressive, heavy metal, guitar centric. Simple as that. With some little flavors thrown in from time to time for good measure, which is always welcome. Like I said, you get acoustic moments, which is cool, and I'll talk about a little bit later. There's moments you get like saxophone in there, which that's the highlight of the album for me. Like when the saxophone came out, I was like, dude, that's so sick. Yeah, and then like in track 9, you get some more synth infused keyboard kind of progressive elements, at times almost sounding like 8-bit kind of sound, like, classic old school video games, like 8-bit kind of sound, or 16-bit. But so it's kind of all over. Yeah, for the most part, it's guitars, guitars, guitars. The bass is solid. Again, the drum really does a good job of keeping up with all the movements, all the changes, all the shifts, all throughout the album. And the vocals are really solid as well. She does a good job of, again, keeping up with everything. There's a lot going on, a lot of different dynamics. And, she does a really good job of keeping up with that. She's got a great range, a solid voice. I do feel like the mix at times drowns her out a little bit. I would have liked to have heard her a little bit more, maybe, enrich the sound of her voice a little bit with the mix and whatnot. Like I said, I feel like she gets drowned out a tiny bit. Um, but, Other than that, I would say the mix and the production is pretty solid. It's a little rough around the edges at times, but considering everything that's going on, it's pretty crazy. How they're able to capture everything, and I'm sure there's just tons of tracks throughout, that they're keeping track of. But Yeah, so there's certain things I cannot argue with. You just cannot argue with the talent here of the musicianship, the vocal talent, um, the creativity at play here. Those are things that you just cannot argue with. Some critiques that I do have is that, okay, there's two main critiques that I have of this album that kind of holds it back, in my opinion. I believe this is the debut album though here, so there's always room for improvement. I don't care who you are, a debut album's a debut album, and a band just only gets better as they go. They fine tune their sound, this and that. I feel so. Two things. Um, well, maybe three, but one thing is I feel like at times there's a disconnect between the vocals and the music. So I guess two things, because this kind of goes hand in hand with another thing. But I feel like sometimes I'm listening to the vocal melody kind of going, and then the music kind of going like separately. That they don't sound joined in together. And you know, it kind of takes away from the song, because you kind of feel like torn between two things. It sounds like two kind of things going separately, not at once or together. And part of this kind of goes hand in hand with another thing, is that the melodies, especially, I feel like the vocal melodies took a back seat. The music is kind of doing its thing, and then I feel like the vocal melodies were an afterthought, and I think that's why in certain spots the vocal melody does not sound connected with the music. It just almost sounds like there's two things going at once, and it kind of takes you out of the space a little bit. So I think, focusing a little bit more on connecting the two, keeping the vocal melody in mind when writing the music, I think is important. So that's just one thing, for me, for just my take on it from what I heard, is that sometimes there was just a disconnect between the vocals and the music. And, I think fine tuning that to get the vocal melodies to match the music, and to get the two to go hand in hand would really benefit the songs, and help make the songs a little more memorable. Because on a vocal melody aspect, there was never any point where I felt connected to the vocal melody. Like, oh man, this, here comes the chorus, or oh man, these verses are I'm really digging these verses. The music really kind of takes the front, the spotlight here. And like I said, the vocal melody kind of just feels like an afterthought. It just feels like the vocals are just having to play catch up with the music and just do whatever possible just to kind of be there and deliver the lines on top of the music. So I would have liked a little bit more on the vocal melody side, personally. And second, there is so much going on here on this album. Again, the talent of the musicians is indisputable. It just truly, I'm very impressed with the sound and the musical prowess and just all the ideas, because there are so many ideas here, and so many of them have tremendous potential. But what I found to be difficult to take in at times is there's too many ideas. There's too much going on. I feel like streamlining some of the songs a little bit, removing some aspects and maybe saving them for other songs, or, taking some ideas and building a different song from that idea, instead of having too many ideas in one song, because there's just so much going on here. It makes it difficult to really engage with the songs too much. It makes it difficult for the songs to kind of stand apart, because in a lot of cases I feel like the songs kind of run together, and it can be difficult keeping track of when one song begins and another song ends, because there's just so many movements, so many shifts in each song that it just can be overwhelming. So I think I can just picture, and again, this is just me picturing it, just the songwriter, or the writers writing the songs, and then being full of so many ideas, so many creative ideas and thoughts of how they want the songs to go, and then another idea comes, and so they want to incorporate that too. It's just bursting with ideas. But I think restraining that a little bit, and not overloading each song with so many different ideas and shifts and movements and sounds, I think that would benefit the album and each song, because I just feel like each song is just too packed with too many directions, too many different things, that it just gets a little overwhelming. There's no just, I like when albums take you from the very beginning and kind of guide you through the album all the way through to the end, in a sense. And yes, I know this is a very, very progressive album, but still, I feel like it's a little directionless. It's just kind of like, every idea that was had was kind of thrown into this thing in some capacity. And I just think a little restraint, perhaps, a little more direction, a little more focused sound would benefit going forward, because like I said, there's so many ideas here, so many moments where I was like, oh man, this is so awesome, but then it kind of just starts shifting around again. And I just think expanding, taking some of these more singular or a few of the ideas and expanding just on those to create a song or a full sound, and taking some of the other ideas and creating a song from that, instead of having too many in one. Just kind of playing with that idea would be beneficial, I think. But with that being said, again, there's a lot of great ideas in here. The first song, The Halls of Waiting, Oblivion, really kind of comes out the gate and gives you a good impression of what the album is all going to be like. So I would highly recommend you start with that song, if you're curious about the album, because it really gives you a good idea of what the whole album is going to contain. It's got the acoustic moments, it's got the real heavy moments, it's got more melodic moments, things like that. Track 3, Slavebranded, has this really cool kind of rhythmic guitar work that I really kind of dug. That kind of sound, it kind of is more engaging, but track 4, Shrine of Resurrection, is really when you kind of get the impression that, okay, this is different. Which I believe that this song, just based off what I could hear, like in the lyrics and whatnot, is based on like the Legend of Zelda. And this song is like how I mentioned earlier. Some songs like have the real kind of progressive rock pop kind of elements, transcendental '70s kind of vibe. This song definitely has that. It's a lighter kind of sounding song, and it makes me think of like the fairy fountains in the Legend of Zelda and things like that. So it's really really neat song that kind of uh, broke things up a little bit. That is one thing I like. There are songs throughout that kind of break up the pace a little bit and kind of get you refocused. So I do think the order of the songs on the album was very well done, meticulously done to create. Like I said, have solid breaks, between certain things, and to have lighter moments and things like that, just to kind of get your mind, back focused in. Because again, I found myself getting lost sometimes when things were getting a little too crazy. But songs like that kind of bring me back in. And then the highlight, I think track 5, 6, and 7 is really the best example of kind of what I was talking about as far as more of a focused sound. I think that is where I felt most like, yes, I'm kind of I'm on board with this. This is a more of a focused sound of what I was looking for. And track 5, it busts out, and it's like an instrumental kind of track for the most part. It's like 3 minutes long, and the saxophone, oh my, so sick. The saxophone busts out. The song's called Bregalad's Lament. Busts out saxophone, and it carries into track 6, the Herald's Approach, which is probably my favorite song on the album. It's got some awesome moments where the saxophone blends with heavy guitar and really great rhythms and impactful moments. I wish there was a little more of that, because again, there's definitely some shifts throughout the song, but there were some moments here in this song that got me just so hyped and so sick. I really like that song. And then Rain of Fire also has a really nice, more of a focused sound. Again, it's got that progressive elements though, but it just felt a little more restrained, and I was able to get on board a little bit more. And then the song rounds out with tracks 8, 9, and 10 that are all like part 1, 2, and 3, where it's kind of instrumental, and then it gets really epic. Like I said, track 9 has like some synth keyboard in there, if I'm not mistaken. You get some male vocals in addition to the female vocals, so that was a nice treat, a nice addition there. Again, the album's organized really well with the songs, just to kind of keep things interesting. And track 10 is just a nice like acoustic guitar kind of outro sort of song that rounds it out well. So like I said, there's a lot to like here, a lot of talent, a lot of really great moments, but what holds it back the most, in my opinion, just to summarize, is there's a disconnect, in my opinion, between the vocal melodies and the music. In a lot of places, I would have liked a little bit more focus on the vocal melodies at times. Not always, because I get that this very musically intricate album, and especially with the guitar and stuff like that. So I get that that's kind of the focus, but the vocal melody, needs some time to shine as well. Maybe get some good solid choruses in there. I feel like a lot of times it's just kind of delivering the lines almost in a narrative fashion, just to kind of get the lyrics out there. And then second of all, I feel like there's just a little bit too much thrown in here. I get that there's just a lot of ideas. Like I said, I can just picture the songwriters bursting with creativity, bursting with ideas, but you know, that needs to be sorted through, you know, a little bit. I just feel like there's too much crammed into this one album and into each individual song, and I think just a little bit more restraint with that, a little bit more focus, a little bit more, you know, making the hard decisions of saying, you know, this is a really great idea, but let's save this for something else. Let's just expand on this idea instead of taking this idea and that idea and that idea and that idea and putting it all together. It's kind of taking them separate and then expanding on each individual one, something like that. But again, this is just me, just a dude, you know, a dude's opinion, album thoughts. That's why I call it the album thoughts, just my thoughts on it. Yeah, but at the end of the day, like I said, a lot of heaviness here, a lot of variety, and some gnarly guitar work. So again, if you're into like heavy guitars and some cool guitar work with some acoustic guitar, you're really going to find a lot to like here. As long as you're good with heavy progressive elements. And oh man, I can't recommend. Track 5 and 6 need to be listened to together for that saxophone, and it's, oh man, it's sick. I love that. So tight. But yeah, anywho, that's what I got to say about this one here. That's Flame Imperishable, which I believe is their debut album, Glory and Ruin. I look forward to seeing what this band continues to create because there's so much talent there. Yeah, just a lot of potential with this band here. But yeah, that's what I have to say about it. Let me know in the comments down below if you've listened to this album. What are your thoughts on it? And thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'll catch you all next time. Ranger, out.